Well, the Peanut Gang tells us how to live a life of joy. You'll be interested to know that in 1984 I actually played the role of Schroeder. The musical version I knew about before I actually had ever seen the cartoon. The song is exactly the same. But the Peanut Gang tells us how to live a life of joy. They recommend learning and discovering new things and celebrating life and spending time in reflection and sharing and loving and expressing goodwill and being grateful for what we have and developing deep friendships. By engaging in these life-giving endeavors, we can be blessed, according to the Peanuts kids. And to be blessed means to be truly happy. Not the sort of superficial happiness that we get when our favorite show comes on TV or when we don't get any red lights on our way to work or those kinds of things, but a deep joy that isn't shaken by circumstances, no matter what they are. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus promises blessings to those who engage in life-giving practices, the same kind of life-giving practices that the Peanuts kids sang about. He says that true happiness, blessings come, true happiness, deep joy comes from promoting love and promoting justice and promoting peace and promoting healing and building community and having goodwill. That doing these things by offering, by giving ourselves to good causes, to good work, to make a difference in our world, that's what makes us feel good about ourselves. That's what makes us feel connected to people even beyond our sphere of immediate influence. And when we do that, when we work for love, when we work for justice, when we work for peace, when we work for healing, when we build community, and when we share goodwill, then we are blessed. We are truly happy. Doesn't mean we aren't also angry or sad or grieving or all the wonderful expression of emotions we have. But in addition to all of that, we have contentment with who we are and we feel good about what we're doing in the world. Now we'll get back to this important lesson that we hear from that Sermon on the Mount, from those Beatitudes on the Sermon on the Mount. We'll get back to that. But first, I want to reflect on some of what has been happening in our world recently, some unhappy circumstances, clearly. Since 2009, U.S. Christian missionaries have held anti-gay conferences in Uganda. U.S. missionaries have gone to another country to have these anti-gay rallies and workshops and conferences. They are now ordaining ministers and planting churches throughout Uganda, and they are dedicated, these churches that are being planted are dedicated to an anti-gay message. That somehow the good news that has been exported from our part of the world to theirs is that gay people are somehow subhuman, that same-gender love is somehow not love, and that people who are so subhuman and non-loving should be brutally punished for who they are. These U.S. missionaries and the hatred that they are exporting have contributed to a hostile climate that breeds violence and even murder. As a result of this homophobic agitation, a disturbing law has been proposed in Uganda that would punish people with life in prison, and the proposed law originally called for the execution of gay people. The anti-gay bill would even fine or jail allies of gay people. Someone's mother who loved her gay son unconditionally could spend 5 to 7 years in prison or pay an onerous fine. Friends and family who won't turn their loved ones in or who might even dare to speak in favor of equal rights for gay people can be punished according to that law. Now, remarkably, this almost unimaginable injustice is being perpetrated in the name of one who was himself executed for standing up to unjust powers of oppression. Will irony never cease? This climate of hate resulted last week in the murder of David Kato, a gay rights activist in Uganda, not quite 46 years old. His friend and co-activist, Val Kalinde, shared her very powerful story with us on Wednesday evening in this very room. In fact, upon landing at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport on Wednesday, Ms. Kalinde learned that her friend David Kato had been killed. Still, she rose to the occasion and spoke eloquently for an hour about the brutality same-gender-loving people face in her home country. David Kato was bludgeoned to death with a hammer in his own home. He wasn't out causing trouble. He wasn't out confronting people. He was home when someone came and bludgeoned him with a hammer because of his activism. At his funeral, adding insult to his victimization, an uninvited pastor grabbed the microphone and started an anti-gay rant in the style of Fred Phelps. Instead of honoring a brave man who had been slain, this minister used the funeral, a time for closure, a time for healing, a time for saying goodbye. This minister used the funeral as an opportunity to spread more of the kind of intolerance that cost David Kato his life. Cato's friends understandably responded with outrage, and mayhem broke out. Rest in peace indeed. Brenda Namagade, meanwhile, is a Ugandan lesbian who has been living in the UK because of her country's hostility towards same-gender loving people. And she was almost deported back to Uganda last week. The deportation, because of international outcries, has temporarily been delayed, but there is more work to do before we can celebrate knowing that she will not be sent back to certain torment and probable death. Just a few weeks ago, 5 gay rights activists, 5, were killed in Honduras. Now, of course, we've known for years now that Jamaica is the most unsafe country in the Western Hemisphere for LGBT people, though apparently others are trying to rise to the challenge to equal the unsafety for LGBT people. But Jamaica has been an unsafe place for a long time for same-gender loving people, and we continue to support our friends in that island nation as they work for equality and as they struggle literally to survive. Here in the U.S., fast food chain Chick-fil-A has been identified as supporting anti-gay organizations and funding campaigns against marriage equality. They make a profit from taking money from both straight and gay people and then use those profits to oppress gay people. Chick-fil-A prides itself on being a Christian-owned franchise. It will get no more of this Christian's money. And plus, I'm far too slender to eat there anymore anyway. An internationally followed televangelist who pastors the largest megachurch in the United States recently insulted gay musician Sir Elton John by saying that Sir Elton was somehow not following God's best for his life. I have no idea how he came to such a judgment. The well-known Houston pastor, known for his soft voice, smile, and usually positive messages, also said on a couple of public occasions lately that homosexuality is a sin. To his 44,000 church members and worldwide audience of multiple millions, he labeled the love that I have shared with my life partner for the last 11 years a sin. The cause of love and justice was not well served by his thoughtless remarks. And to those hurt by his remarks, I would say that God is love, and whoever lives in love lives in God, and God lives in them, and that love that includes the divine presence is also same-gender love. There are no qualifications. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God lives in them. Medical science and social sciences tell us that sexual orientation is innate. Whether one is gay or bi or straight or any of the variations along the continuum, because there are variations. We want things in neat little boxes, and life is just never that way. But whether one is gay or bi or straight or any of the variations along the continuum is a matter of ontology, a matter of isness, not choice. One of the names for God in the Hebrew Scriptures is I am that I am. Long before it was a song in Lakaj Afar, it was part of our Hebrew Scriptures. I am. Even the Apostle Paul, closet case that I believe he was, said, by the grace of God, I am what I am. As the Reverend Elder Darlene Gardner used to say, gay by God, proud by choice. For something to be a sin, one must have volition in the matter. Because being what one naturally is can't be a sin, the voices of fundamentalism argue with science to say that sexuality is a choice. Apparently, science and technology works in their favor when they use the internet and television to get their message out. Apparently, science and technology works in their favor when they go to the doctor so they can live a long time to share their message for decades and decades. But when it comes to this, science, of course, has it all wrong. And so they argue with science today that sexuality is a choice, though none of them seem to recall the moment they chose to be straight. And various scandals in their churches have shown that some of them, regardless of their homophobic rhetoric, are not straight. Most of us can't choose who we are, and if you are that one exception who can choose, please make the most of your choice. Be straight today, gay tomorrow, bi on Tuesday. Make the most of your choice. Don't be that one person not using the gift of choice. Most of us discover what we are and then learn to celebrate it. But if you are that person who can choose, please choose often and enjoy that wonderful gift. It is no sin to be in love. It is no sin to share mutual attraction. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Sometimes at the alibi, we're not yet to being in love. And even that's good. The eyes meet across the crowded room. That is the beginning of something wonderful, or at least something that was better than nothing. It is no sin to share mutual attraction. Homosexuality is not a sin. It is a divine gift and part of the great diversity of creation, as is heterosexuality, as is bisexuality. But homophobia, the fear of and often willful ignorance about homosexuality, is a matter of choice. And it causes great damage. And so I can say with confidence and with moral authority and with prophetic certainty that while homosexuality is not a sin, homophobia is. Sexual orientation cannot be changed, but prejudice can be changed, and it must be changed for the good of our world. Reverend Brian Hutchison and I spoke just 3 days ago at a local university. To say that there were hostile opponents of gay rights in the room would be a tragic understatement. I felt at one point that we were actually standing back to back with broken beer bottles, defending for our lives in some sort of a bar room that we didn't mean to be in. But to say that people were opposed to our very existence, well, that became clear. The superstition that was in the room was amazing. One person asked about the efficacy of exorcism to get rid of homosexuality. I said, I see a trainer 3 days a week. How much more should I exercise? I'm middle-aged already. You're going to hurt me. The ignorance of human sexuality, the intolerance, the naive understandings of religion, and the utter inability to apply critical thinking to preconceived prejudices was astounding, especially in an academic environment. Some defended their homophobic notions of God with rage. I have no use for a deity that needs little old me to defend it. And I have no use for a religion that is frightened by new discoveries, that is frightened by growing knowledge, or that is frightened by love, or by difference, or by diversity, or by the witness of loving people who say, this is who I am, and this is my experience of life. But their homophobia in that room had risen to the level of idolatry, and we seldom give up our idols without a fight. One person even said that same-gender love is not love, but mere enjoyment of certain physical activities. And the activities she named wouldn't apply to many women in our community, nor would they apply to those who are celibate. as we all are at one time or another, by choice or by circumstance. As Cher used to sing, sooner or later we all sleep alone. Regardless of what Brian and I told her, she just could not entertain the possibility that people are what they are regardless of how or if they play, and that love's genuineness is not limited by the gender of the persons expressing it. What Reverend Hutchison and I experienced in that room were the same attitudes that we see escalating to uncontrollable violence in such places as Jamaica and Nigeria and Uganda. And those attitudes we have allowed to be exported. And we have supported some of that with our spending or with our silence, and we just can no longer be part of exporting violence and hatred and murder. The sacred value of same-gender loving people is under attack all over the world, and religious people from the U.S. are exporting their hatred to fuel those attacks. We have to confront homophobia at home so that there is less of it to export to others. People are using God's name in vain to dehumanize and demonize LGBTQ people, and as a result, people are dying. Lives are being lost all over the world, whether from violent attacks or from state-sanctioned executions or from compulsive behaviors that people engage in to reduce or numb the pain of rejection, or from suicide caused by hopelessness. There is an epidemic of hatred, and it is literally killing people locally and nationally and internationally. So let me say again, for whoever may be watching on the internet, love, whether between men, or between women, or between men and women. Love is not a sin. God is love, and whoever lives in love lives in God. Love is not a sin, but hatred is. Hatred is a devastating mistake. It is missing the mark completely, whether we are hating others or hating ourselves. You'll hear a song about that in a few minutes. The hatred that is being fueled and spread against gays and lesbians all over the world is contrary to the life-giving love that God is. And when others won't stand up and say that, we at the Sunshine Cathedral and we in MCC will. That's why we're here. That is our mission. That's why we exist, to be the voice of inclusion, the voice of hope, the voice of healing, and the voice of prophetic challenge. Let us never forget what our mission is and what we are here to do. We know what is required of us, and it is to do justice and to love mercy and to live humbly. That is our calling, and our world needs us to embrace that calling as much today as it ever has. Now hear this. We are not hopeless. That's a long list of what is problematic and challenging in the world, but we are not hopeless. We are not without joy, because we are willing to name the injustice and to speak truth to power and to offer a more affirming view of spirituality by answering our call to speak out for justice, to speak out for love, to speak out for compassion and fairness and inclusion. We are filled with indomitable hope and with unspeakable joy. Our hope is that our efforts will one day change the culture of hate into a society of concord, unity, and goodwill. And our joy is that when things weren't as they should be, we allowed God through us to be a healing power in the world. We remembered what was really important, and we stayed true to our high values, never being distracted, never majoring in minors, but staying focused on why we are here and what we are called to do. And because we will continue to offer an alternative to oppressive theologies, because we will offer healing love to the wounded, and because we will not be silent, nor will we rest until the sacred value of all people is recognized and celebrated, we will be far too busy to ever be without hope or without joy. We will be far too busy to be distracted by anything that would keep our focus from this high calling, and we have a noble purpose. And because we have a noble purpose, we will always be filled with hope and joy as we live into that purpose. I think that's what Jesus is saying today in the Gospels. Blessed are the poor in spirit. That is, happy are we who recognize spiritual need and respond to it, for they will experience God. Blessed are those who mourn. That is, happy are those who have known real sorrow, because they've also known real courage, and their courage will be a comfort. Blessed are the meek, That is, happy are those who renounce privilege, for they will be the source of empowerment for others. Not power over, but power with that we all share. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. That is, happy are those who long for justice for all people, because as they work for it, they will find fulfillment. Blessed are the merciful. That is, happy are those who care about others, because they will know the joy of giving. Blessed are the pure in heart. That is, happy are those who are true to high values, for they are expressing their sacred value. Blessed are the peacemakers. That is, happy are those who promote peace rather than conflict, for they will be doing divine work. And blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. That is, happy are those who are persecuted for doing what is right. Better to be given a hard time for doing what is right than to have it easy for not challenging what is wrong. Happy are those who are persecuted for doing what is right, for no amount of persecution can rob us of our honor and dignity. These blessings are promised to the justice workers and to the peacemakers and to the healers of the world. That's what Sunshine Cathedral and that's what all metropolitan community churches are called to be, and it's what we will be. So the blessings of deep meaning and true happiness will always be ours, because we will always continue sharing the light with the world. And mostly, we can be happy, truly, deeply to our core, happy to know that the work we do together is enriching and healing and even saving lives. This is the good news. Amen.